everybody, and welcome to Beyond the Trailer Park, episode 188. And tonight we are being graced by SciBabe. I'm going to let her do her last name because I know I will slaughter it with my wonderful speaking voice. And again, we are without our intro and outro. I think I have fixed, but I really didn't want any glitches for today. So with that said, we have with us tonight Bridget Fitch from Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. How are you, Bridget?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. And of course, Miss Morgan from our landmass between Mobile and, I always get this confused.
Mobile and New Orleans.
New Orleans. Thank you, my dear. How are you?
That landmass right in between.
Yes.
Slightly up north. Yes, I'm doing great.
Excellent. And Miss Sammy from the not-so-frozen tundra of Ontario. How are you, my dear?
It's just starting to finally thaw out, so a little bit less frozen there. You know, you can't quite fry an egg on your car yet, but we're for it.
And you said you had something you needed to say.
Oh, yes, very quick. So I've had a couple viewers lately ask me about something, and I feel bad that not everyone who has transitioned has voice privilege, and that doesn't make you any less valid of a woman. So for the rest of the show, I'm going to be using my old voice from when I was hiding. And it doesn't make me any less valid of a person. And not everyone has the privileges that I do in life, and I need to acknowledge that. So this one's for you ladies. I see you. You're valid and you're beautiful. And this is for you.
Excellent. And coming from us from the wilds of California, and if I got that wrong, just shoot me, is the wonderful Miss SciBabe. Yvette,
hello.
How are you? And could you, for my sake, please pronounce your last name because I know I'll slaughter.
It's d'entre. If we want to really French it the fuck up, it's d'entrement. But if we want to just American it, d'entrement. It just d'entrement. Like that's. It's okay.
I wasn't even close.
No, don't worry. My name is telemarketer proof. It's awesome. If somebody calls for Yvette d'entrement, they are fucked. So it's like, oh, you're calling to tell me that my Amex card that I don't have is due for a payment, and can you have my account number? So it's useful. Has its purposes.
Yeah, it's one of those tongue twisters for me.
Yeah, it's whenever, like, I always knew, like, whenever someone, like, was getting to a list and I was waiting for my name to be called, whenever someone, they're calling out, like, Jane Smith, whoever, and all of a sudden they go, I'm like, it's Yvette d'entrement. They're like, yes, that's what I think it might be. Like, it was always me.
Yeah, I wasn't even close, I will admit, but then again, a lot of times I can't pronounce words anymore, so. But, so, do any of you guys have any news that you want to share before we dive right into this fun night we're going to have? Or are we all clear on?
I think we're good.
Think we're good? I think we're good too. So we're just going to dive right in. I'm pretty sure we're speaking to the choir here as far as SciBabe's notoriety.
I say things, I think is what it comes down to.
Well, as I was saying, before we started it, I think what attracted me to you is the fact that you're basically no bullshit. You say what you say, and you have the background as far as, being a former chemist. Well, you're still a chemist, but
yeah.
But
it did not take away my degrees.
Right. But you also provide the external sourcing material to support, what claims you do make or when you're debunking.
And I mean, that's the most important part of it, I think, is that sometimes, like, we always see things online that we want to believe. It's very easy, even as a skeptic, even as someone who's writing this stuff to go, I want this to be true, it seems to be true, to make a statement. that turns out you can't support it. And especially when I'm doing the type of writing I do, you have to be very careful how you phrase a lot of these things so that you don't get sued, so that you don't overstate. And that's one of the bigger challenges in how we present these arguments, is which things can we put in that we have absolute incontrovertible, even if we get sued, they'll just end up paying our lawyers' fees type things in our writing. So that's a lot of the technical challenges behind what I write, which is why my articles take so long.
Oh, I know. I have one I've been working on now for over a month, and I'm like,
yep. It's the David Wolf article took nearly 2 months, I believe. I read I read over 2,000 pages worth of legal documents to get that one done. It was a worth it nightmare.
So you got your science degree specifically in chemistry. Then you went on for your master's in forensic science. What got you into debunking, so to speak, and into science communication as a whole?
A couple of things. Number one, I'm a loudmouth and it's hard to shut me up. Let's see. It's like it was a confluence of factors. I hate pointing at one thing and being like, and this was the moment. Because I think every, life story, it's got a lot of stuff. So first, when I went to college, I have a fun double majored in chemistry and theater as an undergrad. As I horribly joke, chemistry because I wanted a career, theater because daddy didn't hug me enough. Always could have been worse. He could have hugged me too much. Look, it's my pain. I will deal with it how I want. So I joked when I got into college. I'm like, look, we already have Bill Nye the Science Guy. We need Yvette the Science Dudette. It was what passed for humor when I was 17, and it seemed like it kind of worked out. But what happened? Had a bunch of random jobs between then and now. Worked in a handful of different chemistry labs and research labs and whatnot, and then I got sick in my late 20s. One day, got the worst headache of my life, never went away. And yes, I tried Excedrin. That seems to be, the question that comes. Yeah, well, have you tried the headache medicine? No, I have a toxicology degree. It's my background's in tox, and I never tried the headache medicine. But went through the ringer trying to get that worked out. And those types of headaches are fucking hard to manage. It's a trigeminal nerve headache, and so it's you're making that face because what or you're either familiar with or you've heard of it, right? It's there. Yes. Do you have is it okay if I ask, do you have a TN headache or?
I've had one before, and also former nursing student, and I have a really rare. The worst pain, and it's like shooting sharp.
Yeah, it feels, and I've always described it this way. It's never really changed. It branches around my left eye, and it feels like I'm being stabbed in the eye by a knife that's on fire. And the variant I have is called Sunk syndrome, and it's not like. Basically, in the medical literature, it says that generally Sunk syndrome is found to be caused by a tiny little blood vessel that's just irritating the nerve. I'm like, so I had just one blood vessel that fucked up my life for years, but it took like a while to get that under control. And during that, I'm following the medical literature. I'm trying to figure out which meds I should be on. I'm going to doctors. I'm trying to be science-based. Mm-hmm. And then I found food bloggers. And I was very overweight at the time, and it's very easy to prey on people who are, especially if you're overweight, and like one of the first doctors I went to was like, well, if you just exercise more and drink less caffeine, I'm like, I am in so much pain. I am crying. Yeah. Like it's very rare in my life that I've had so much pain that I was crying, and like every day at work I was bawling. And this was apparently something that could be fixed with just drinking less coffee and running a little. And here's the thing. I subsequently ran 2 marathons, still have the headache. Just note to that doctor out there who's still going to be an asshole to fat people. So anyway, and I fell down that rabbit hole with those food bloggers, and I was working as a chemist. And every year this comes up and reminds me where I was. I shared this, I eventually, I went all organic. I was like, GMOs are the devil. I thought Monsanto was killing us. And at one point I was eating so little, I was down to vegetables. I wouldn't even eat I loved pumpkin seeds. I wouldn't even eat pumpkin seeds because it's like they have fat in them. They're bad. Like I was kind of getting a little orthorexic. It was not good. I'm like, well, it's basically any diet that said this could have a chemical in it that's hurting you. I was like, yep, that might be causing my headache. Gotta cut it out. Let's go. It's, you know, and it is so easy to prey on someone who's sick and vulnerable. And I hate when people are like, people are gullible. I'm like, no, people are vulnerable. There's a very big difference.
There's a big, I think what really hit me, I mean, I've always been into the sciencey stuff. I mean, I never graduated college, but I've always self-educated, and I try to stick to the facts. I did fall down the woo hole for a while after a little bit of a mess, but I had 2 strokes 5 years ago, and not even 3 weeks after my first stroke, I get a random email that meditation will prevent strokes and cure your high blood pressure. And I'm like, what's my excuse? I've been meditating since I was 17.
It's, well, you weren't meditating right. You needed a jade egg.
Were you meditating with cranberries? Did you have the cranberries and the avocados or whatever the magical fruit mix
You needed acai berries.
No, thank you.
I'm like, seriously? I mean, I have been meditating since I was 17. I use it for pain management and also to help control my bipolar. And I'm up to about 90 minutes a day. As far as meditation, I'm like, yeah, that didn't really stop me from forming a blood clot in my leg that traveled to my brain. But before that, it was about like 12 years ago. I can't even remember. I was diagnosed as being diabetic. Cinnamon, Mike Huckabee. Cinnamon will cure my diabetes.
Oh my God. And people are fucking goofy.
And I'm like, this is kind of what got me into it. I mean, I'd always been into the anti-vaxxer stuff as far as trying to debunk that. And I got more and more into it. And then, well, my strokes happened, and then it got me even more into trying to combat the woo I see. Julian Upperly is currently in my crosshairs as far as debunking her shit, literally and figuratively. But it's like, I think what really hit me was I ended up having to go to a new general practitioner because mine left.
That's always a nightmare.
Yes, I hate doctors to begin with.
Getting a new one, it's always like, what am I going to get? I don't know if this person's going to believe me, even though I have a stack of medical files.
Yeah, so I think it was my 2nd or 3rd appointment. I was having muscle issues on my left side of my neck because I lost my right side of my body. I mean, I have hemiparesis on the right side. It's a little better, but I still have issues with the neuropathy, et cetera, et cetera. And she's like, oh, I can fix that. Why don't you come in for a chiropractic manipulation?
No.
She goes, now, caveat, my uncle was an MD and a chiropractor. He was an osteopath, both. Okay.
Well, osteopath is way different. Like it's not, you have all the same training as an MD, and they can just kind of, they have this extra thing.
He had both. He had an MD license, osteopath, and he was a chiropractor, but he was science-based. Okay. So I grew up with it. So I pretty much know the ins and outs of chiropractic. On my medical file, it states, no chiropractic manipulation. I have 2 herniated discs in my neck. I have 3 in my back.
That's just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, and she's like, well, she's like, I can fix that. And I'm like,
oh, no, you can't.
I'm like, and how do you propose? She goes, oh, we'll just do some
magic.
The mini jackhammer for the subluxations.
Yeah,
I've seen those.
And I looked at her and I'm like, oh, really? Would you like to show me some scientific literature that proves your notions?
No, but she has a patient you can call and ask.
Yeah, and I'm like, I said, Amber, this is how it's going to be. I have over 17,000 different medical articles, journal articles on my computer. About 500 of them concern chiropractic. That says it's fucking bullshit. So unless you can provide me with a scientific paper that states otherwise, not from the Journal of Homeopathy. Yeah. So yeah, your story.
We deal with chiropractors a lot, and because we do a lot of car insurance defense at my firm.
Oh.
And it's really interesting how many people's medical expenses that they claim go towards chiropractors.
Wow. And it's that's just, I'd say it's crazy to me, but it's just not. Like, I mean, a ton of what chiropractors bill for isn't even cracking backs. Like, it's telling people, oh yeah, or I mean, people think chiropractic is, cracking back, is making your back feel better. It's not that. Like, the root of chiropractic, and I get, pushback from this on chiropractors online. No, that's just the bad ones. It's like, no, this is what it was founded on, is that if we crack your back the right way, we will bring your body into a state of health so that you will not get sick in any other way. We can heal your kids' ear infections with a back crack. Fuck you. No, you can't. You can't fix my, my uterus. You can't fix my headaches. You cannot fix these things by cracking. I have a foam roller that I can crack my back with. I still have headaches. Okay. I mean, this field was started by a magnetic healer who told people he restored the full hearing of a partially deaf man in the late 1800s. And then he learned the rest of the field via seances. This is not
Richard Palmer.
Hey, we had a prime minister of our country do seances too. Fuck, love that shit. Oh,
it's which country? Canada or
One of our old leaders during World War or something or other did that. He was big on them. There, it just reminded me.
Well, I mean, what's his face? Prince Charles still, despite the fact that like the rest of England is like, dude, no, just fucking ban this. Like, he's like, no, really, water cures things other than dehydration.
Did you ever get run through the gauntlet of like melt the shit under your tongue because it's magic and gonna fix your like toe infection or whatever thing you have?
Yeah. Well, I had here was the best thing that happened, because there were so many different fucking bullshit things that happened trying to cure my headaches. After it was well managed and I was on meds for it that made life livable again. I had to pass a physical for work. Just, you are in good enough shape to go into the lab and not fucking die on us. They like, this doctor was looking at my medication list. He's like, you're kind of on a lot of medication for this headache. And I wasn't on narcotics, wasn't on anything that would make me drowsy. I was on a seizure medication and an anti-inflammatory, a fucking seizure medication. And this doctor, an MD, a goddamn MD, he says to me, maybe you should go to get some energy healing work done to get, you're on a lot of medication. Fuck you.
But your chakras, your chakras were aligned.
Again, jade egg. I just needed that goddamn jade egg, and everything would have worked out. Gwyneth, where were you?
So speaking of jade egg,
we were talking about that the other week.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get to Gwyneth, but we're gonna start with.
We're gonna get to Goop.
Yes, because
we do like getting into Goop.
Yes, yeah. She's actually hit a couple topics that we've hit in the past couple weeks, but for me, as far as really latching onto your writing and following you and yada yada yada, being a fangirl and all that other bullshit, where it all began. What is a toxin?
Oh, toxins. Like, and this was the biggest buzzword when I started writing about it, because I was afraid of toxins. I was sure everything in the food supply was killing me because they all had toxins.
And everybody's into antioxidants too. Everybody was like, eat pomegranates.
It's enough pomegranates, like you'll fucking live to be 300. They were sure of it. Like, it was, what was it? Pomegranates, kale, chia seeds. Like, there were all these superfoods. It's acai seeds. Yeah. And I mean, these handful of things were supposed to help cleanse you. Green juice. Doesn't matter what just fucking add grass clippings, Mountain Dew, and pistachio ice cream, and you have yourself a killer green juice. Like all you need is
with cranberries. It's just like when cranberries became big. All these food industries do is they pay off the doctors to pimp them out. And cranberries are no more better for your urine infection than any other fruit is. But the cranberry industry paid the doctors to tell you it is. It's the same with anything else.
The best thing you can do for a urinary tract infection is go get yourself some fucking antibiotics and keep drinking water.
That was actually, there was an article I read and I don't remember who wrote it and I don't remember when. It was quite a few years ago. They said why cranberry juice appears to work is because you're actually drinking more liquid.
Yeah, it's
more, and it's water flushing out your system. It has nothing to do with the cranberry. You could drink OJ and have the same results if you're taking in that much more liquid. But it's like you said, go get a freaking antibiotic.
Cranberry juice itself they dilute it quite a bit because it's very tart and needs a lot of sugar to make it not horrible. I mean, unless drinking tart, horrible things is your thing. I don't want to step on anyone's fetish for tart cranberry juice. Moving on. So yeah, like the toxins thing was kind of nutty because everyone's like, everything's a toxin. I'm like, do you understand that this is a technical scientific word that means that this thing is going to fuck up your life? Like people are like, I stopped eating gluten and now I just feel lighter and my acne is gone. And I did this cleanse and it took all the heavy metals out of my system. And I feel I don't bloat so much. I'm like, do you know what the symptoms are of heavy metal toxicity? That is acne and bloating are not the Simpsons. The Simpsons. The symptoms. They're not the Simpsons either. But no, they're not the fucking symptoms. And it's like each heavy metal has different they have different presentations. They need different treatments. And these people are just like, yeah, I just need like a fucking coffee enema and bang, no more heavy metal. I'm like, number one, that's not the whole for coffee, unless, again, I don't want to stomp on anyone's fetish, but still, that's a waste of, I still argue that's a waste of coffee. But number two, like, that's not how toxicity works. That's not how like chronic buildup of toxins work. And it's just, everyone didn't want to hear that because it's a comforting story that you can heal everything wrong with you and prevent long-term illness and not get sick by just drinking some fucking juice.
Mm-hmm. And I find it funny that they talk about this heavy metal toxicity, but then these same people are running out and buying colloidal silver.
Yeah.
Well, it's colloidal, so it's fine. Obviously. How did you not know? That was one that always stuck in my craw too. It's like, these are people who probably take Tums when, when they have like, and this is, Tums seems fine and normal. When you have a stomach problem, take some Tums, and then complain about aluminum in vaccines. It's like you get one antacid and you've had more aluminum than all your I'm not sure if the math on that's correct, but like, couple of antacids, you've killed all the heavy metals off in all your vaccines ever.
Yeah. But yeah, your article, and this is concerning Vanna Harry, the food babe.
Oh Lord.
And
I did say some things.
Yeah. Yes, you did. And I'm glad you did.
They were unkind.
No, they were the fucking truth.
It's funny because I look back at that article.
Did you know they put nitrogen in our air? On airplanes?
They put it there. It's funny because she tried to play it off as though the entire article was attacking her for, I made a few mistakes in an article several years ago. It's like, bitch, that's not, and I mean, sorry for using the gendered slur. No, fuck it. She's a bitch. It's like we didn't do any, we were very careful not to use any ad hominem attacks. We went after, her behavior online, her very clearly, provably wrong science. And it's funny because knowing now what people will sue for, especially like I have a target on my back to get sued for anything I write, that article would have been written so much more, number one, thoroughly. It would be a lot longer and it would be written a lot more carefully. And like, we would have had like 3 lawyers looking over it now.
Yeah.
It would have been a really different article, which makes me happy that we wrote it. It was the first article.
Yeah.
Like, cause like the David Wolf article, it took, that thing took forever. We had, I believe it was quite literally 4 editors and 2 lawyers looking over it.
Holy wow.
Everything got much more complicated after we figured out that we were just, we learned that we could get sued quite easy. Like, it was after Gawker died. because I was originally writing at Gawker. I went and I kind of hopped with the same editor to every place that I wrote after that. And that's why a lot of my pieces have this, other than Self, I've pretty much written with the same editor since day one. And she's shaped the, Leah Finnegan, she's shaped the writing quite a bit. And it's been fun to write with her at the outline because we can write these really long form pieces and dive deep into an article and get a bunch of eyes on it. But it's like, I wonder how different that SciBabe piece would have been. And it would have gotten as big of an audience if it had been as like long of a piece. Because the David Wolf piece was great within the skeptic community, but people don't know about him as much outside of there. So it didn't get as wide of circulation. I don't know if people had the attention span for the 4,000 word pieces that I love writing. I love the amount of research, but I also I'm starting to, I wonder if people would rather watch a YouTube video of that same information as opposed to sitting down and reading something, which kind of makes me sad.
Well, what's stopping you from recording it as a YouTube video, though, of what you've written?
That's what I'm working on transitioning to.
Ooh.
and I mean, it's been difficult because like we've been in the middle of a little bit of upheaval at my house. Like there was a bit of time where like there was a potential job offer in Spain. It was like, do I set up and start recording this thing when I might have a job that I don't know what my schedule is going to, like, I didn't want to start a series. And like the best thing that I had the time for was a podcast. Like that was the thing that I'm like, all right, I can dedicate myself to a, 2-hour a week recording with my podcast buddy in New York. I'm like, I can't start this YouTube series yet. So I've started writing, what I want to do, but I haven't started recording yet because it's like, all right, and I mean, the new place I'm moving into has plenty of room for recording. Like I already have my quarters set up. Like there are actual lights set up in it. It's wonderful. But like that's what I've decided I'm kind of moving towards because it's, that's where the audience is right now. And that's how people want to get their scientainment. I like it. Infotainment.
That works. Well, and that's kind of the dilemma I'm in. Like, I mean, I just do it for fun. I'm not trying to proselytize to people or, I'm just trying to get information that I find interesting, give it to other people, let them do with it as they will. I mean, I've had a blog since 2001 and I usually was mostly political commentary, and I moved to the diddling priests and the abuses within the church, and then I had my strokes, and that's kind of changed my writing as far as being able to, and also being able to type, because that took a while to come back. But it's like, okay, well now, and I don't really have the voice for video, and I definitely know I don't have the face for video, but I don't really care.
Oh, stop.
Okay, without this layer, like this spackling of makeup, I have the face for radio.
Yeah, see, my problem is I don't have the voice for radio. It's like I'm my own worst critic as far as.
I think we all hate our voices more than anyone else does.
The first time I did the podcast, and we're going back, almost 15 years now. Between 10 and 15 years. And it's like the first time I ever heard myself on a podcast, I was like, oh, I sound fucking awful.
Oh yeah. Like it takes a little while to get used to your voice, and kind of over time you're like, all right, what version of my voice sounds best on a pod? Like you kind of start practicing with it.
I don't even do that. I never did that, but
I have a theater degree. I feel I would be a disappointment to because I'm still friends with one of my comm/writing professors, and like I feel like I would be a disappointment to all the lessons she gave me on vocal. What's the word I'm looking for? On vocal modulation. If I didn't make sure that I was making my voice, somewhat pleasing to the audience.
Yeah, so my voice doesn't change.
I need a voice coach.
Yeah.
The worst thing one can do with their voice, though, and I hope you know what I'm about to say, is when you drop it down to here and just kind of let the crackle happen. Like that's gonna eventually. You will, like, if you let that, and I mean, it's hard because it's an easy thing to let your voice drop down to here sometimes, but like chronically doing it eventually builds up nodes on your vocal cords. And like, it's the worst. And I mean, it was funny because I write about nutrition quite a bit. And I tweeted a little bit about the ketogenic diet, as I do, because I love hate mail.
We're going to get into that.
I love hate mail. And a few of us had tagged Gary Taubes in tweets because Gary Taubes is an asshole who's wrong about everything, almost. And he instead of hopping into the fray on Twitter, he emails me the most condescending fucking piece of shit email I have ever gotten. Gary, if you're listening, fuck off. But then, like, he says, after I email him back a very professional email, look, I can be professional occasionally, but he sends me this, after I send him a very professional email, saying, look, I had journalistic inquiries that because I had already sent him a journalist inquiry email. He never responded. Yeah. And I'm like, so you only email me back when I talk shit about you on Twitter? Fine. So I send him an email, very businesslike, saying, here are the questions I sent you. Please send me a response. And he emails me back almost like, oh, fuck, she has a huge following and I'm going to die. And I'm like, but here's the thing. Then I started watching him on video and realized he sounded like this the entire time. And I'm like, you know what? Even if he wasn't the most condescending ass that I'd ever got an email from, I don't want to listen to that for however long a dinner with him lasts. Like, I would not be able to. I'd be like, excuse me, can you lift your voice up to here so that you don't sound like you're gargling with gravel? I would prefer that. I don't want to talk to someone who sounds like they've had a fight with a velociraptor and they lost their vocal cords. Like, oh. And I mean, I'm sorry, that might just be his voice, that I don't want to make fun of someone for inborn things, but fuck, you can work on that shit, especially if you're a professional public speaker.
If he shows up to the dinner now with one of those smokers' voice boxes, you're going to feel like a big bitch, aren't you? You're going to feel like the biggest bitch ever.
No, I'm going to tell him he lost it because of the ketogenic diet. Eat some carbs, bitch. Unless you have epilepsy, you can eat some carbs.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's what the ketogenic diet was developed for. It was developed for childhood epilepsy, and they were working on seeing if it could work for type 1 diabetes before they had insulin. And it was kind of a strange little thing where a couple different people were playing with diets without carbohydrates, diets that, starvation diets, basically, because they found at first that starvation worked to get rid of seizures, but it's like, hey, we can't keep not feeding the epileptics. So, eventually they accidentally figured out, series of interesting things, that the same ketones came out in urine when people were not eating carbs that came out as when they were starving. And it's like, oh, there's a connection here. So they figured out, okay, we can keep these kids on an extremely low carb diet. And I mean, it's lower than these people who are like, I'm low carb, but they're like, I'm going to have an orange on the side. Like it is, I believe, 1 gram of carbohydrate per X number of kilograms of body weight. So it's like, you have to keep it below 20 if you're a kid, like, especially, I mean, maybe 10 to, like, you get nothing, you get no carbs if you're on it for epilepsy. But yeah, now it's just turned into a fad and everyone's like, fuck dessert. And I'm like, you're crazy. I lost 40 pounds the last 2 years and I never gave up a damn thing. I just ate less.
Well, yeah. And that's why, since you're already on it, we'll hit your keto article. Is that one thing that I wasn't aware of, even though I kind of followed the keto diet for a while, not eating keto.
It works. I mean, it'll make you lose weight.
Well, any diet will make you lose weight if you're reducing the caloric intake.
Yeah.
But like you pointed out, is that, the whole history behind the use for epilepsy. And I have a friend whose child was on it, had epilepsy, but also had Hunter's disease. I think it's Hunter's disease. I'm trying to remember. Jim Kelly's kid that died from it, I think his name was Hunter's. That's why I'm calling it Hunter's disease. But they used a version of the keto diet to control his intake in food. And there was a legitimate, use for it, but then it just went, the Atkins diet came into play and it just took off from there. And now it's just like, I think you had said, if it's working for you, do it.
Oh yeah. Here's the thing. I've lost weight before on keto and then I crashed hard on it. And I mean, or not keto, on Atkins, because they're a little different. But like, I think whatever works for someone, and if you talk to a doctor, talk to a registered dietitian, figure out if this does work for you. If everything on the inside is as healthy as you look on the outside, those two things count. All right. Like, you can be thin and be in horrible health and not know it. And I mean, like, I lost weight, but I mean, I still got my cholesterol and triglycerides checked, and they had dropped, but there was still a problem with one of the proteins that transports my HDL. And it's like, what else is going on there? We did a full blood workup. Losing weight does not automatically mean everything is fixed. So like, if going vegan works for you, or going plant, I know vegan's the ideology, plant-based is the diet, whatever. If going plant-based works for you, go for it. If going keto, paleo, whatever, do the thing that makes you happy, that makes your stomach feel good, that makes you feel. And I mean, I've never told anyone otherwise. It's just, I think people, when they hear the myths debunked that make them attach onto their diet, they feel like they're personally attacked because they've defined themselves, at least some people. And, when I first started this, like the vegan and paleo communities, it's like, which ones do share? Like, and again, not 99% of them. Like, this is the really extreme ones that attack it's like, if you find out that a vegan blogger that you love stopped being a vegan, and you go on a vicious campaign attacking them on social media, you're probably an extremist. But that, like, it's weird seeing people get so attached to their dietary identity. Like, it's food, man. It's calories. Like, if we were on the open plains back in the day, the people who were just trying to catch a buffalo to survive would fucking laugh at you and be like, get back. You want kale, back of the pack. That's we're trying to live here. You don't get to be choosy.
Well, it's like one of the, and I don't know the as far as the truth, but it was the notion behind is that, like, with the paleo diet, I mean, it's all the rage, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, there was an article, I think it was like 2 years ago, maybe 3, that came out that they suspect that, I don't know, and as I said, this isn't vetted, but there was an article coming out saying that, well, our paleo ancestors may have been cannibals.
You know what? Wouldn't surprise me.
And it's like, so are you following it that extreme?
There's a lot of evidence of it, depending on how far down you go.
Yeah, the whole notion is, I eat paleo. It's like, you might want to rephrase that, because
where's Timmy?
Our paleo,
he didn't fall down the well this time.
Yeah, it's like,
we decided which one of our kids we like the least and went paleo.
It's like,
it's maybe if a version of Soylent that's high protein comes out, we should stay away from it. I'm just saying.
Yes.
Who knows? I don't know what those wonderful, disruptors in Silicon Valley are going to come up with next. I'm just saying, if they come up with a green flavor of Soylent, maybe don't be an early adopter. That's just my thought on the matter.
Yeah. Corn came from somewhere. I'm just saying.
It's just, and I think that's what makes, like, the work you do as far as your science communication and advocating for science literacy. I know you're big on advocating for STEM, is, what is science literacy? How is it important to us? I have a very, I call it simplistic view, is that it's just, because I've become so jaded after dealing with creo-twats and medical womb wasters and anti-vaxxers. I mean, we're going on almost 20 years dealing just with anti-vaxxers. And I do it piecemeal. I mean, something catches my eye and I'm deep down the rabbit hole, sometimes too deep.
I feel you. It's for me, like, I feel like I get ADHD in dealing with, like, which thing do I spend my time attacking? Like, something will come up with an anti-vaxxer being like, it's okay, I'm going to give my 9 kids chicken pox. I'm looking at you, Governor Bevin.
Yeah.
Like, why get not, like, and I mean, I'm going to get hate mail for this, but fuck it. I mean, like, I know why my grandparents' generation had a ton of kids. It was in case you lost a bunch of them to now preventable diseases. Mm-hmm. I get it that Bevan's from Kentucky and they're a little backwoodsy there sometimes, but, like, did no one tell him that we have vaccines now and that you don't have to have a ton of children in case you lose one of them to a preventable disease? Yeah. I wonder if that's please don't give your children preventable diseases because you're just too much of an asshole to get a chicken pox vaccine. My God.
But vaccines are a liberal conspiracy, and also he probably thinks that it makes it better, but then, now they're at risk for shingles.
Yeah. I think this is something that people are, I don't know if your audience is unclear on this or not, or if cause I posted the link to this over on my page. So hi guys, if you're watching, but getting your chickenpox vaccine if you get the chickenpox, you are at risk for getting shingles later. Get your shingles vaccine too. But it's don't purposefully infect someone with the chickenpox thinking that is getting them, that's helping them, because you're just hurting them later in life. Because about 1 in 3 people will get shingles, and all of those, more than likely, all of those people, or you have a high percentage of being one of those people if you got the chickenpox early in life. Don't do that.
And I've never had chickenpox, but and people I've never had it. So
can you get the vaccine at your age?
Well, I was vaccinated for it as a kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was vaccinated for it as a kid, and I never got chickenpox. So, but now people are like, "Oh, well, your dad shouldn't have done that because now it's going to be worse when you're an adult." And I'm like, "Well, I haven't gotten it yet, so
you're not going to." I forget that. Is it okay if I ask how old you are?
I was maybe in kindergarten or fifth grade or something.
How old are you today?
Oh, I'm 26.
Yeah,
I couldn't get it. I'm 52, so I couldn't get it when I was a kid.
35, and I got chickenpox when my brother caught it at school. He's 3 years older than me, and I got it when I was 3. My mom said that I had it in my ears, in my mouth, everywhere. And I mean, I was 3. I don't remember it. So I'm like, all right, when I get shingles, it's gonna fucking blow.
Well, my mom had chickenpox. My mom had shingles. See, she's been dead now 6 years, so probably about 15 years ago. And it was
miserable.
It just the cost alone.
Yeah.
I mean, if my dad did not have he has state sponsor, he worked for the state, so he has state insurance. If it wasn't for his insurance, the medication alone was $4,000 a month.
And I mean,
one thing.
For some people, they're put on gabapentin, or otherwise known as Neurontin, to deal with the severity of the nerve inflammation and nerve pain from it. So if you, and I mean, you might have some listeners that are like, well, it's just chickenpox. All right, let's
I worked for the nurse that was on a pain pump for shingles because hers was so bad.
Oh yeah, and I mean, here's the thing: even if you're just on gabapentin, I've been on gabapentin off and on for my headache issues. I've had 3 operations on my left shoulder because I'm ultra bendy, and I've been on gabapentin when we were having nerve issues in my shoulder. Here's the thing: gabapentin, it works okay. It doesn't fuck up your brain that badly, but it makes you kind of out of it. Or some people have said, and I mean, I don't quite get this effect. It does make you a little zonked, but I'll still take it when my headache's very flared up. It works it's not one of those ones that has to build up in your system, or at least I've never felt like it has for me. Please consult with your doctor if this is a thing that you need. But people get really fucking zonked on it. So you're setting your kid up, if you decide, I'm not going to vaccinate for this. You're setting them up for eventually needing to be on a psych med, basically, because it is, it's for epilepsy. You're setting them up for having to be on what's basically a psych med for several weeks, I think, when they eventually have a virus attacking their nerves. Why the fuck would you do that if you care about your children?
Yeah, exactly. It's
don't do that to your.
Yeah, it just it doesn't make any sense when you look at, and when you have somebody in a governmental capacity like Bevan, who says, "Oh yeah, I exposed my kids. I didn't want to get the vaccine," or whatever his stupid reason was. But it's seriously, it's
you know what? There's no cure for chickenpox, but you can vote Bevan out of office.
Yeah,
I'm down with that. God,
yeah, and this is why, I mean, just for our general listeners, why I think having science literacy, which I basically think of as just basic knowledge of understanding scientific concepts. You know, whether it's something that we need for personal decision making as far as our own health goes, participating in civic and cultural affairs, i.e. going to school and not exposing your classmates or picking something up from your classmates, or just for economic productivity, the flu shot. My former job when I worked in the factory, we had to get the flu shot.
Yep.
Because, makes sense. I mean, I worked in a factory because we could not afford to lose time from work, from productivity, or we'd end up having, I went 3 months straight with no day off.
Oh.
Because I was required mandatory overtime. It was part of my job. And so
I feel like that's not legal in some states, that you can't have people work every day of the week. Like, or at least it's not with, you know what, I get hashtag America.
Yeah. I mean, basically, if I did not work, I mean, I could say, well, I can't work Sunday, for example. I mean, there's nothing they legally could have done to force me to do it, but I probably wouldn't have a job on Monday. It was that type of situation.
That's insane.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, we can get into the whole politics of that, the whole aspect, but I mean, I work in a restaurant. I've worked in restaurants my entire life. Even when I was at the factory, I was still working food service because I just couldn't get it out of my blood. I've been doing it for 45 fucking years now. But I know people, well, I went to a McDonald's and by 24 hours later, I was deathly sick with an upper respiratory and strep throat. And I'm like, who the fuck have I been around? Turns out a friend of mine who works at that McDonald's said, oh yeah, we had 2 workers that came in sick.
Oh, Jesus.
I ended up suing McDonald's and winning because the manager told those 2 people if they called off sick, they had no job. And the strain that I had, they were able to test, and it was the same fucking strain.
How can you tell people to come in with strep? Are you, wow.
People do that all the time.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm not surprised, but I'm also kind of like, especially for food service. Like, my God, I'm sorry, but nobody's Happy Meal is worth, like, Happy Meal with a side of strep. Like, nah. I mean,
so as the customer, do you want that either? Do you want that risk of getting sick from getting food? Do you want to get your food and go home, go to bed?
I mean, I say that, like, when I was 6, I got I've had strep many times in my life. I got my tonsils out when I was 19 because I was getting it 4 or 5 times a year. And that was mainly in high school. Like when I was elementary school, I mainly got it just, you know, a couple times. But when I was 6, I went to a private school. That our nurse was kind of just a secretary with a thermometer. And I went in on a Friday saying I have a sore throat, and they're like, well, you don't have a fever yet. Now this continued on for most of my life. When I had strep, I did not get a fever until like day 2, when it was very fucking infectious and I could barely move my neck. And so this, you know, went home. By the next day I had scarlet fever.
Yeah.
Like, don't fuck around with strep. Like, I don't understand how this is even a consideration. Someone's sick and they have snot running everywhere. Don't put them near patients. Don't put them near food.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, with science literacy, people got to understand that, yeah, there's a trade-off. Do you want your whole fucking crew sick? Or do you want this person to miss 1 or 2 days of work? I mean, so people have to be aware that, you know, any health decisions does have ramifications outside of themselves. I mean, I loathe going to work. I mean, I had strep last week. That's why we didn't have a show last week, because Beth could barely talk, but Beth was also having coughing fits. And I mean, I've had them before, just normal ones from, you know, my neck still being all messed up and stuff. But when I get sick, they're worse because I don't have the oomph to get shit out of my throat and my lungs. So it just kind of hangs and chokes me, and I start coughing. It's like, I don't want to be doing that around food that I'm going to serve to somebody.
Nope. Not okay.
Yeah. So I think that's why it's important, like, you know, why I do what little I do, as far as, you know, people, here's the truth, here's where I'm getting the information. But then you get into the whole science denial thing, and which is a whole nother ball of wax.
And I mean, we need as many people as we can out there just, you know, pushing back on this. And it's like, it doesn't, the hard part is pushing back on like friends and family. It's like doing that online is just a fucking minefield. Like, I'd rather talk to people.
I know.
Like, it's easier to talk to friends and be like, hey, you know, I love you. I don't want you to go through a thing where you end up with a medicine cabinet full of pills that just push back your treatment because you're losing money. I've seen this happen. Like, that's an easier thing to say to a loved one in person. Saying it online, it always comes out as, you're a fucking idiot who's wasting your money. Like, that's how it always feels, at least on the other end of it, even if those aren't the words you're using. Like, that's how it ends up feeling. Like, and it's shitty because you want more people to like, and I guess like that's part of why I want to move to YouTube. Like, the words feel more impact. Like, one of my favorite YouTubers is ContraPoints, and I love her so much because like the way that the delivery hits so well for the same words that might be jarring or might not work as well on paper.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I mean, that's why I keep bouncing back. Well, I'll start writing out, you know, whatever, thinking, starting as a blog post, and I'm like, I wonder if this would be better as a video as I hit the 10,000 word mark. And I'm like, yeah, maybe that'll be too long of a video. So it ends up like being 5 parts.
You know what I end up doing with long things is either going, fuck it, gonna be I watch YouTube more than I watch TV. I know they're the same thing, but it's like I don't watch YouTube more than networks. But like one of my other favorite YouTubers, Lindsay Ellis, who does analysis on films and whatnot.
I love her.
She's so brilliant, right? Like,
so great.
I have never her feminist theory analysis of Transformers was fucking incredible. Like, it was both, it was laughably absurd that she could poke that out of that, and it was so well done.
Oh yeah, like, if you're not great at it.
Yeah, it's if any of your listeners are not already following Lindsay Ellis, please follow Lindsay Ellis. Anyways, it's not a paid endorsement, but it's just have to clarify. Whenever I just say do a thing, like I have, I'm not being paid.
Conflict of interest.
Yeah, oh god, that I've been accused of that enough. But yeah, it's where was I going on that? But she's had 10,000 word things, she's like she just puts it out as a half an hour video. Like there are some people that short, punchy 6-minute video, that's the most that you want to listen for. And now like I kind of tune in for these half hour to hour long things because I'm like, this person has a well put together, entertaining message that I'm learning from, and I'm enjoying every last minute of it. So it's just editing and working the thing to something that's 10,000 words of people will listen to this bullshit.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's one of the first things I realized. I call it the 10-to-1 ratio. For every 1 page of bullshit people put out, we have to put out 10 pages to debunk it.
Yeah, at least. Like, I feel like once a lie is out there to the world, it never goes away. It's like how many people, like, I remember, so I wrote what was it? It was a parody article on the jade eggs, because we have to talk about the jade eggs.
Yeah,
I had written it's rich women in Los Angeles are experiencing an outbreak of herpes because due to the shortage of jade eggs, they've been sharing theirs.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
Look, I never claimed to be nice or to not be a pervert. So, and I mean, it was a joke article, but people were like, "What? I can't believe women would do this." I'm like, "Oh my god, read the fucking." Like, I hate having to put parody like on the on a tag for the thing. I'm like, I give my audience that much credit, but you always know there are going to be 1 or 2 that don't check. But like, it's the jade fucking egg. Why? But yeah, that's
jade is so heavy.
I want to know. I want to know why that's a thing that someone would think to stick in their cooter. That's not don't do that. Don't jade egg your lady parts.
You did an article about Gwyneth, and I didn't review it. Yes, yeah, it's funny because some of the article. Well, actually, your article on Tom Brady, your article on Gwyneth have been 2 that I refer back to quite quite often anytime I bring up Gwyneth on the show, or Tom, which was the last two.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love whenever the Patriots are in the Super Bowl because it's just a chance to bitch about Tom Brady being a fucking moron.
Yeah, which I do every year. Yeah, I'm always like, by the way, he also thinks that he's like, I don't guess he's going to be immortal because he doesn't eat anything good.
I mean, he doesn't eat gluten, tomatoes, dairy, or onions or mushrooms. I don't suggest the pizza at the Brady household.
He's going to be immortal. We all know why he's going to be immortal. He's cut the head off every other immortal with a sword, like you've seen in the movie. Like, we know the film. It's fucking straight up, all right? Like, Brady McLeod, and they changed it to Tom Brady when he came over here. We know this, like he was smart.
And I don't give a shit about him either way. I just wish that, like, this is what happens when people become rich and good at a thing. And I mean, I'm not saying he's not good at throwing a fucking football. He's clearly good at throwing a fucking football. I'm just saying that he's not good at throwing a fucking football because of his stupid fucking diet.
Well, it's like you said, if I remember correctly in your article, you said he's got good genetics.
Good genetics and a great work ethic, obviously. I mean, he's worked his stunning little tail off to get to where he is. Like, that's, there's nothing wrong with saying, man, that guy worked hard. He worked hard. That's, and I don't know how hard he worked his deflated balls off. I don't know how and I don't know if they were deflated or not. I don't give a shit.
Kind of bold of you to say that,
yeah. I mean, because no one else has said it ever. That's never been joked about. Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye haven't actually got on the air and discussed the physics of deflated butts. Jesus Christ, it's so fucking stupid. And here's the thing: I'm a baseball nut. I do not care about football to save I cannot make myself like it. I've tried, and it's not. You like football. It's just Tom Brady's diet's stupid. That's all I know.
Yeah. Well, that's what it comes down to. He has all this fame and glory associated with football, and then he's translating it into this crazy ass diet that, God, sounds really boring to me.
People find, and especially if you're good at something physically, and I mean, I fell into this a little bit too. Like, when I first started, losing weight and taking things out of my diet. One of the first things I fell into was having a plant-based diet, and I was sure that my running got better because of the veganism. Like, has to be that. And it's not that I had been running for long or more miles, or that I'd lost weight. It had to be the veganism. And you do, like, it's that stupid fucking that humans are superstitious thing that, whatever you think is, you're correlating that thing you're doing with the more success. It can't be the practice that you've already been doing, because, you do need more hours of practice to get better at a thing. It has to be that thing you ate that morning.
Well, it's like I played hockey for 26 years. I mean, I never changed my socks. That's mostly why I got better at hockey. Not that I was that to begin with.
The socks.
I think always because people were afraid to get near me because my socks stank.
Well, I know that I know that, and I mean, I know this during the 2004 Red Sox season. I wasn't allowed to pick up any phone calls from my brother during the game, or else they would lose. That's why they won the World Series.
Right.
Obviously, that is where all logic goes. Sports are where all logic dies, even with rational people.
Oh, yes.
Well, and that tells you how easy it is to fall into these traps. I mean, I went through, even as an atheist, the whole paranormal bullshit. I mean, I was convinced I was psychic.
We have our moments.
And it's like, I mean, I still to this day do not know what the fuck I was thinking, but because I was in such a bad emotional state that my brain just was not functioning on all cylinders, I think I was down to 1, if that, and that's a 12-cylinder engine.
You had 1 horsepower.
Yeah,
it was like, so horse.
It's easy to see how people can fall into it. I mean, I have myself. I mean, I know Sam has a background in paranormal investigating. Our former co-host, who's no longer with us, has a background in paranormal investigation. And it's like,
it's so easy to just like and it's partially, again, it's a thing you want to be true, because the paranormal stuff, it's like, oh, it means my old relatives are still there and I'll see them again. It means I'll be there too. It means that all this won't come to, and I mean, has this given anyone else, like, this has to, I can't just be me in this room. It's given me almost a bit of an existential crisis that I'm like, I'm gonna die one day and it's just done. Like, what do I do with this? Like,
constantly.
Well, we've talked
especially
about
when I'm trying to fall asleep and it's like, hey, remember how you're gonna die and nothing will ever matter? And I'm like, can I just go to sleep? Not now, brain, not now.
Those moments when things are bleak, it's like, there's no point to all of this anyway. And I don't know if that's supposed to give me comfort or not. Like, sometimes it does, and other times I'm like, fuck.
I got so sick of the paranormal by the end, because we were ghost hunters, like, legit. We had like matching shirts and like fucking gear, and it costed money with like lights on it and shit that did stuff. And so I got so jaded by the end that I had a handful of pennies in my pocket by the end, and we were investigating this abandoned hotel. And I'm just like, fuck this shit, and just hucked him at the end of the hallway, and everyone freaked out. Oh, we heard a ghost, and it was bang, and
the electromagnetic field went off, and it could only be a ghost, because nothing else could possibly trip an EMF field except
internet, radio, nothing. It's got to be a ghost. It's got to be a ghost. Cell phone will trip it off if you know what you're doing.
If people like, if psychics really existed, like, I want one of them to agree to fucking prove it. Like, there was something that came out recently. A couple people in the skeptic
Susan Gerbic did an excellent job.
Susan is amazing, and this was, Susan's the ringleader. She does amazing work with guerrilla skeptics of Wikipedia, going through and correcting all the things that need correcting. And they did this thing, Operation Pizza Roll, where they went into some of the private groups for this psychic who, and they basically wanted to set it up so that it would be a double-blind hot reading. And I'm just going to explain this for the audience at home. A cold reading is where people started going, does anyone have a loved one with a name starting with a letter? And that's, you guys know it goes from there, and they kind of have
statistically impossible that nobody in here knows someone who's died. Like, come on, somebody knows somebody's died.
Did they have a male feeling artifact like a fishing rod or a knife or maybe a shirt?
He did have a shirt. He did have a shirt.
Did he like to golf? Maybe. Did he occasionally cook things? Did he like garages? Like, could you get more vague?
He did eat food. He did.
Yeah. Oh. He ate food. Oh my God. So did we knew. He said he misses eating food with you. See, I'm psychic. So then a hot reading is where, like I've seen Long Island medium do this, where she'll kind of walk around, like reading kind of walking through the lines. Is anyone looking to communicate with someone tonight? And she'll kind of collect names a little, or mentally collect names, and she'll go back and start off the thing. And that's a kind of, I'll call that a warm reading, because she'll go like, and who was looking? I'm hearing a Monica, and she remembers Monica from the line. And she kind of, then it's kind of a cold reading from there. And this was a hot reading. They set it up for a hot reading. And this was so cool. And they had people in this forum. And basically they said, look, the only things we're going to tell you is what your names are for, that was most of the only thing they told, Susan and her partner for this. Basically they told them what their code names were for this. And they went in knowing that, some bits of information had been dropped in this forum, and this psychic just every last bit of information that had been given in that private forum. Is someone looking for this person? All the names, all the bits of, like, it was just so, like, that was their double blind. Yeah, this guy's using hot reading. And it's like, I understand this doesn't, quote, disprove all psychics, but will people finally stop giving these assholes, these grief vampires, money?
Yeah. Well, just an FYI, I am working on getting Thomas Westbrook from Holy Kool-Aid to come back on Beyond the Trailer Park to specifically talk about this, because he did a documentary style
interview and video.
Thank you. I couldn't think of the word.
Or I just interrupted. It's possible.
No, it's fine. I forget my train of thought a lot. And so I'm hoping I can connect with him and bring him back on the show. But for those of you that follow me on Facebook, I did about a week or so ago post a lot of the articles. If you want, I'll throw them up in the show notes later, just so y'all can follow it. But how Susan set this up and how they set it up, the double blind, and one of the things that they had a hard time with, and it was, as you said, they didn't know what what the other people posted as them on Facebook. They had no clue. They, like you said, they only knew the basics. And at one point, they almost got busted because her Susan's partner, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
I believe it was Mark Edwards who she went.
Yes, it was Mark Edwards. He's like, "Who's that?" And it turned out it was supposed to be his brother or something. It's like, whoops. But yeah, they go into the whole thing. But it in one of the interviews, I don't remember if it was on Thomas's documentary or he published the full interviews that he did to put the documentary together. He was taught, I think it was Susan that might even have mentioned it, that they were like in an after show, and this one lady was, "Oh yeah, I've seen him before," and they overheard, "Yeah, and sign my name right this time." And that caught Susan's ear, and she's like, "This time? Oh yeah, I've seen him before." And it turns out that this supposed random lady was a fucking student of the psycho.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Psychic, not psycho. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
Same.
Yeah, but it's just like I have friends that claim to be psychic. And it's like I'm like sitting there thinking, it's like, it's not
go ahead and tell me we're a murder victim. Tell me who killed John Benet Ramsey for sure. Like,
yeah.
Go solve a fucking murder with just your brain and no forensic evidence, and then find out the forensics matches up. Like, tell me who tell me who's guilty other than Adnan Syed from the Serial podcast. Like, go out and do a thing that needs doing with that fucking psychic ability of yours, other than saying, "I know what the end of this episode's going to be after the episode's over." I predicted that.
Well, there are some that do that. There are some that, that do is claim that they can help with, police investigations and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I believe it was, I can't remember if it was in Thomas's presentation or the interviews afterwards, or if it might have been something associated. Basically, the police and the FBI, et cetera, have stated that no psychic has ever helped solve a crime, ever. And it's like, you have, I mean, we all can look at Sylvia Brown with the debacle. Oh crap, I'm forgetting.
I forget the name of the kid, but she basically said, "Yep, the child's dead," and
she was alive.
Yeah,
it was the Cleveland case from a few years ago. And
look, maybe that kid just fucking hated Sylvia and was like, I'm not talking. No, it's not.
But this is one of our side tangents we go off on. But
I find these tangents perfectly acceptable, given that we're talking about horrible people and why people should, the questions people should ask to get to this is wrong. And like, I think that's part of like my process is I have to ask some questions, and like that's part of science is ask questions, see what the answer is, go to the next question. Like, I think you're only as good, both in, because I mean my background's in science and now I kind of work as a journalist. Like you're only as good in either of those as your questions. Like, right. I don't come to this with any answers. I come to this knowing I'm going to ask a lot of questions, right, and I'm going to see where they go. And I mean, so it doesn't happen often, but sometimes I look at something and go, I think this might be bullshit. And I look through it and go, oh, it's not bullshit. That's great. Like I don't go into things with an agenda. I go in going, this smells funny. And
I think it's interesting you put it that way. I listen to Apologia quite a bit, and I actually finished his back catalog of episodes. I'm all depressed now because now I have to wait for new ones. But in one of his shows, he does primarily Eric Hovind and Ken Ham. And basically, Eric Hovind actually admitted on air on his little Creation Today show or whatever it's called that he starts with a conclusion and then tries to fit everything into the conclusion. It's like, no, that's not
just
how
like most theists.
Yeah, I mean,
they have one book and they have to fit the world to the lens of that book.
Yeah, whereas science, as you state, you go in with questions and go where, you know, the answers lead you.
Yeah.
And I think even with you know, with the food issues, like you did one on Diet Coke.
And here's the thing. I fucking love Diet Coke. If one day, and I mean, it seems like all the evidence is correlation with this, you know, they'll find a long-term epidemiological study going, oh, people who drink Diet Coke gained weight after these years. It's like, what else did they eat? And there are never any answers in these surveys about what else people ate. And there was one, and I have this in a presentation of mine. There's one particularly officious example of a headline that does not match the study. And it's always because Diet Coke, you know, it has chemicals in it and it tastes good. Duh, it has to be killing you. So this, there was this article saying Diet Coke will make you gain 5 pounds a year. I'm like, all right, bullshit. So because I drank it all through my 90-pound weight loss. I'm like, no, fuck you. This is not like, if it made me gain 5 pounds a year, no. So I looked at
my house, well, apartment.
So I looked through and I find the article, the underlying scientific study, and they didn't actually look at weight gain or loss at all, which I thought was amazing. They looked at calorie or discretionary calories versus overall calorie intake, you know, like, or snack intake from beverages versus low calorie or high calorie beverages versus low to no calorie beverages plus snacks or discretionary calories, as they call them, along with them. And drinks like alcohol, beer, coffee drinks that have, you know, like the fraps and whatnot, those all had like, you know, 300, 400, 500 calories. Those were higher count beverages. When you got to, and then with Diet Coke and tea, those two had the lowest. The discretionary calories were for Diet Coke, it was 69 calories. For tea, it was, I believe, 65 calories. And they didn't say a word in this article. And this was far fewer these were far fewer calories, obviously, than the things that had calories in the liquid. Like, you know, you were still drinking fewer. And the article itself was just diet, because they took that number of those 65 calories per day, just multiplied it out by the number of calories in a year, and we're like, oh, this will obviously make you gain 65 pounds in a year. Ignoring that it was the same amount as tea, and ignoring that it was way less than frappuccinos, and then I'm like, are you kidding me? And that's the type of stuff that gets written about. And I'm like, why are you, like, all my friends who do weightlifting and that do like figure competitions, the same, like they'll say the same thing. Go ahead and drink and have anything you want, you know, within moderation, with artificial sweeteners in it. It's going to be fine for you in the long haul.
I used to bodybuild when I was in my teens, early 20s, and I was contemplating going into a competition, but I couldn't get, as they call it, ripped. In other words, you lose that excess water weight. I couldn't get it off.
That's rough. Like,
and I'm like, okay, so I had a subscription at the time to a lot of the bodybuilding magazines, one of being Muscle and Fitness, and they had an article about how regular soda was basically a calorie hog. And people that know me know that I can drink up to 6 liters of diet soda a day. Okay. I used to drink that much in regular soda.
Oh,
you do the math. You do the math.
Let me guess. It was very easy to drop some weight.
Within the first week of switching, and this is when aspartame first came out.
Oh.
Okay. So this was back in the 80s. Might have even been before the 80s. So it might have been like 79, 80-ish. Oh, wow. I think I was still in high school. But anyways, the first week, I lost 12 pounds.
Oh, my God.
From going from regular soda to diet. Now, I've been drinking diet soda, Diet Pepsi primarily. I will drink Diet Coke, although it's not my favorite, especially here in PA, something with the water. And I'm still here. Okay, granted, I'm not in the best health, but I don't think diet soda has anything to do with it.
They have yet to find any evidence. Like, there is no causal evidence that it does anything.
No. It's like,
I mean, here's the thing. If I find causal evidence, I will be the first one to say so, because number one, I am not paid by Diet Coke. The financial relationship is I give them money for their product.
Yes.
And here's the thing. I've actually cut down on the amount that I drink it. Not because it's I think it's bad for me, but because I just in general think I should drink more water. So I have been. And number two, it's fucking expensive.
Yeah. I'm trying to incorporate. I don't like water. Yeah. I hate water. I've tried fruit, like I can't really drink like orange juice or cranberry juice because of the sugar content.
Yeah, I just add lemon and a bit of peppermint essence into mine.
I've tried all kinds of things. I just cannot stomach water.
Doesn't work for some people.
Yeah, I've been trying to incorporate more water because I do when I had my second stroke, I ended up in the hospital because I had insurance then. I didn't my first one. They sent me home 2 hours later. But they ended up cramming 10 bags of saline solution in me in 48 hours. I was so dehydrated. So my neurologist was like, you have to drink water. And Pepsi does not count.
Yeah, so I mean, like
I've been trying to do it. So now instead of having a glass of soda on my nightstand, because I get real bad cotton mouth because I smoke and I do chew, and I smoke cigars and I smoke a pipe and yada yada yada. So I get terrible cotton mouth, and I would just have soda and just drink that. So I've been trying to keep water on my nightstand.
I mean, the one that I'll do is like if I'm like if I'm in a stage of I need something flavory, I'll do diet ginger ale. Because like I was having some really bad insomnia, and I wrote a thing about it for Self a couple months ago. And I was like, all right, I need to find a way to get this insomnia to not be a thing. And I was like, maybe I shouldn't be downing 17,000 things of Diet Coke a day. So I shifted myself. So no caffeine after 2 p.m. And I was trying to have maximum 1 cup of coffee, 1 Diet Coke a day. And for a few weeks there, I got myself down to the point where I think I didn't have any diet. Like when I was having some stomach issues, I didn't have any Diet Coke for like a month. And I drank a ton of water. And it's not that like, and here's the thing, now I can have soda again and my stomach's still fine, but I drink less of it just because like I've acclimated to drinking water. And I think it's just better overall because I'm not so desperate for caffeine when I wake up in the morning. I don't need it as much
problem.
To get through the day.
My other,
it's been there.
Okay. I drink one of these and go to bed. So
here's the thing.
Do anything.
I used to be like that, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Like when my headaches were severe, and I mean, if I got off all meds right now for it, they would just go back to as they were on day one. But when we didn't have them properly medicated, because caffeine's a vasoconstrictor, and as you guys probably all know, it's in Excedrin because it helps with headaches. Mm-hmm. One of few things to help. Like I would go through one of the giant things of the sugar-free Rockstar lemonade. Like I'd bring 2 or 3 of them to work with me. And that was part of my headache control. Like, and it was horrible. Like no one wants to set out to drink that much caffeine so that they're not in miserable pain and just be like running around buzzing all day like they're on cocaine. Like that's not what you want in your day. It's like cocaine, but not fun. I've never done coke.
I got really bad. I will admit I got really bad with these. I was drinking about 8 to 10 a day.
Oh my God. That's I would never lecture a human being on what food to eat. That's not my business, but I'm saying this as a person with a background in toxicology. That is a lot of caffeine.
I don't know if I can get my arm twisted, but I have a scar going from my elbow down to my wrist because of it. because it made me fucking psychotic.
Yeah, I mean, just like there are a lot, like one of my because I taught college for a year. I had a student who developed a liver enzyme issue after drinking far too many. Basically, that was all they drank for a little bit. And yeah, please don't fuck around with that.
Yeah, I learned the hard way that
you know what,
more than 2 a day.
Here's a question: do you need fizz or do you need flavor or do you need both?
I have no fucking clue, to be honest.
Have you tried Mios or Noon tablets?
I
like the Mios. Like lemonade Mios are great.
Yeah, I have to find something because I do like, I mean, I know I drink way too much. Caffeine.
I mean, you know what? If I'll just, and I apologize for doling out some, because I mean, you said it hurts you, so I'm like, all right, here we're staging a "we love you" intervention. You know, it's like if all else fails, every other drink of the day, switching to like go to the store, get yourself some Mios. And those are like, they're delicious. That was how I kind of started going from Diet Coke to you know, every other drink of you know, Mio, and then to water, and then now Diet Coke is kind of a, you know, treat-ish thing. Like it doesn't feel like an addiction anymore.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, with the whole science literacy and understanding science, what's good, what's bad information is that. Yeah, you can share ideas between, like we are now, right now, with the rock star, but ultimately it comes down to, drinking 8 to 10 of these a day was probably not a really good idea. Plus, I fell off the wagon. I was drinking and I was doing pain pills again. And it really, when you're bipolar, that doesn't mix so well. But I learned from it. I mean, granted, I spent a week in the hospital, but it doesn't make me say, oh, this shit's bad. You know, it's like I've learned that you have to do things in moderation, just like you have to do with, you know, like with the diet, with the paleo, with the Atkins, with the keto diet. You have to do what works for you, and it's like just finding that thing that works it's really, it's bizarre trying to find it because I have not found the combination.
And had that balance been taught more as kids, because I remember last week we were talking about drug scare, or 2 weeks ago we were talking about like drug scare books that we got as kids in school. Same thing. You were never taught about moderation. You were never taught about why people do things, why people overeat, why people have any of this. You were never taught that. You were just showed after results. You're fat now because you overate, or you have diabetes now because you overate. Like they would just shove it in your face, the result, and bad, and you know, everyone will hate you, and they would never give everything that led up to it. It was very unfair.
Like, I mean, I grew up a fat kid, and people don't treat fat women like you are not treated kindly by society if you're a fat woman. That's just true. And it kind of, unfortunately, I'm thinking about it now because I know how the world treats you when you're fat, and I know how the world treats you when you're thin, and they're two very different things. And it shapes you as an adult to be treated like that as a, you know, as a teenager, as a, you know, when you're coming of age. And it's, you know, now it took a while to get a healthy relationship with food and figure out where my balance was, and, you know, figure out which things I can't leave alone in the fridge and which things are occasional foods and which things. And the biggest thing was finally getting to a point where I don't feel guilty having things that I enjoy, or I don't feel like someone's judging me going, oh, the fat chick's eating a salad. Of course. Like there's
I think earlier you had mentioned that you teetered on
Yeah, easily. And I mean, it was almost like there was like a light bulb that went off with the orthorexia thing. And that was, you know, I said there was no like light bulb moment for what made SciBabe happen. There was a light bulb moment for what snapped me out of that. I lost a lot of weight. My doctor was thrilled with most of the weight loss. And then when I was already down to a healthy weight, I lost another 15 pounds in a month. And it was around the time that I was that I was like, I was at the point where I'd walk up and down the aisles I was already at the health food store, the place that, smells like hemp and patchouli, basically hemp, patchouli, and flour that doesn't have gluten in it. And I'm, walking up and down the aisles, and if I see canola and oil in it, I'm like, that maybe has GMOs. It's infected by Monsanto. I can't have it. That was where I was, and I mean, it took my doctor saying to me, when she saw my chart, and I'd just been in there a month ago, she said to me, she's like, do you have a self-esteem problem? And I was like, oh my God, like that was, I'm like, she thinks I have an eating disorder. She's never and I'd had this doctor since I was 15. She was always very straight with me. And I'm like, she wouldn't say, and I'm fortunate that I have that, like that you got to think about this clearly. Your doctor said that she wouldn't do this to you without a reason brain. And I was like, I have to reevaluate what I'm doing. And I sat there going, I'm cutting out too many food. Like within a few months, it took a little bit of time to figure out what was fucked up and what was okay with what I was doing. And it's taken years since then to kind of go cause I gained some weight back. Like I gained back half the weight, and I've lost I'm 10 pounds away from getting back down. But here's the thing, I've lost it without cutting out any foods, without going nuts, without exercising for 2 fucking hours. I mean, I ran 2 marathons, which I'm proud of, but at the same time, I did that on joints that were screwed up, and I probably shouldn't have run the second marathon. You do dumb things because you're told this is what's going to make you whole, or this is what's going to make you feel better about your body. And it's like, you're never an after, this is going to sound like a fucking platitude, but fuck it. You're never an after picture. You're always in process. They never tell you, that's why they never tell you how to keep weight off, because they're like, here you are at after, life is going to keep going after.
Yeah. Well, I know when I was hooked on the rock star and yada, 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 I went down, my initial weight when I got off my psych meds, which were for health reasons, I was 268 pounds. Now, I'm only 5 foot.
If it makes you feel any, I was 244 at my highest.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not embarrassed by it, but
it was a solidarity thing.
Yeah, most of my weight gain can be attributed to my psych meds, especially when I was on lithium and Depakote. Within 3 months of starting Depakote, I put on 100 pounds.
Oh Jesus!
My
3 months.
I was on it's in a year, and part of my weight gain was I stopped running marathons and I kept eating like a marathoner, and part of it was in the course of about a year, I was put on for my back. I had broken, we didn't realize I broke a bone. We just thought it was muscular issues, but I was put on 3 rounds of steroids, and I was put on Remeron for anxiety because they were like, we know Klonopin helps, but Klonopin sounds like fun. So we're going to put you on this thing that fucks with everything in your brain. And here's the thing, Remeron, my anxiety went away, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm not on something that the doctors are giving the hairy eyeball about, but I couldn't fucking close my fridge. So I gained a decent amount of weight, and after we figured out, better meds for me being like, life isn't worth it. The weight went away. My back pain is, it's right now I'm in the middle of moving, so my back feels like it's dying, but, yeah, it's I feel like I was run over by a field of rhinoceroses, and then maybe an otter too, just because it would be funny. But yeah, you get better.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I lost, over the course of 10 years, I got down to 240, 235 when I did my little going off the rails thing, taking my little sober vacation. I went down to 100.
I like that term, sober vacation.
Yeah.
Sounds like taking a day off from work to do a roll on ecstasy and have a threesome with your ex-girlfriend. I mean, I've never done that.
Sounds like fun.
Just for the weekend?
I mean, it might have been a Wednesday.
Yeah.
There you go. Be more real, seriously.
But yeah, I mean, I dropped down to 172 pounds. I got within 15 pounds of my goal weight because I usually carry 155. That was my hockey playing weight. If I went any lower than that, I looked like a 2x4 with tits. Not very.
That's someone's fetish. Is
that literally tits on a board? That's what my grandma used to say. Was that literally tits on a board?
That's my band name.
Yeah. I mean, they have like my BMI weight or whatever you want to call it at 124 for a person of my height. And I'm like, I haven't weighed 124 since I was fucking 10. But I never looked obese, and I was, at the time I was playing hockey.
It's funny. My brother, my brother was in the military, and he always tested he always tested high on the BMI test, and whenever they had to caliper him. Because it's funny because he always looked like he had like just a tiny little bit of like, even with like all the muscle, always just had this little gut. They had to caliper him every time, like just because he's a short human. He's like 5'1", 5'2", and would come into and like big muscly arms, and would come in like 10, 15 pounds above their max weight, and they're like, all right, we're gonna caliper you. Oh, your body fat's pretty damn low.
Well, a lot of your pro football players fail on the BMI because they are, all muscle.
Yeah.
And I mean, I had a friend who was lean as lean could be, perfect target weight as far as if you were 6'10", she was like 5'7", but she had a 2.5% body fat. I mean, there was. She was a bodybuilder. Okay,
I was gonna say 2.5 is kind of like that's
dangerously low.
That doesn't happen on women, like unless they're being like.
She probably had a wee bit of an eating issue.
That's low for bodybuilders. Even like that's lower than.
They shoot for 3 to 5 usually, but that might have changed.
Like men get that low, but I feel like women barely ever get like women.
Yeah, because we have a football player who came from Ole Miss, and he did the NFL Combine, and he has like a body fat of lower than 2%, and people were freaking out about that. They were like, "Wow, that's insane!" But he's like about to go to the NFL, so for a woman, that's.
I mean,
most women. I would not be surprised if she did have some type of eating disorder. If she did, she hit it well, or we were so uninformed. I mean, you're talking this going back a good 20 years, but it was just like people would like just freak out because she was what we would call too thin.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just saying it's crazy because what we think of as too thin. Now, as you said, that's a really, really low body fat for a woman.
That just, I wonder if that's because calipers can there are only a few ways to get an 100% accurate body fat percentage, and one of them is for is to die and be and have your body analyzed. Calipers are wildly inaccurate. Most machines are pretty inaccurate, but I don't think women, the lowest you really see is God, it can't be. It's seeing below 10% is pretty rare.
Oh wow, she probably did have an eating disorder. Then I'm betting.
Or she had an inaccurate reading. I feel like inaccurate reading might have because I have friends in that bodybuild. I live in LA. I've seen fucking thin people and unless they look like bodybuilders tend to by the end, and they have to eat a decent amount because they have to make sure that their hormones are fine. They have to make sure that they're still they can support that muscle. But a lot of them, by the time competition comes, they'll lose their period for a few months, and they're like, as soon as the competition's over, I'm going to go back to gorging on food for a few months, and I'm going to gain 15 pounds in the off season. That's part of the cycle with it.
Yeah, I see that. That's the thing with her, if I remember correctly. And as I said, we're going back a few years. I don't think she ever had an off season, so I'm sneaking suspicion she had an issue. But like you said, inaccurate readings. It's just my philosophy: just moderation and be happy. It's like I am the world's shittiest diabetic patient, and probably on the face of the planet, and it's just like. I said to my doctor when I was first diagnosed, I said, if you can't, quote, fix it with a pill or insulin, don't try to sell me on this no carb bullshit, because have you ever eaten no carb cereal? It tastes like fucking sandpaper. You know, I mean, you know,
I can't say I've tried it.
Oh, it is. It's better now, but back when I was first diagnosed about 15 years ago, they had me on like no carb cereal. I had to buy no carb this, no carb that, and I'm like, oh my god, this stuff is horrible. I mean, I'm a cook. I mean, I work in a restaurant. I want my food to be fucking edible. This stuff was not edible. I mean,
twigs are pretty disgusting.
But it's just like, you know, like the whole thing with the aspartame, and then you actually kind of hit on it in your piece on sugar.
Oh yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and I was telling Renee before we started, or Bridget, before we started that, you know, I get into discussions. My boss is a beekeeper. He has like 100 hives, and he does honey, and he, you know, does it behind the store. He has a little shed set up for it, and he's like, oh, eat some honey, and I'm like, I really can't because of the sugar content. Oh, this is different than sugar.
Well, bees vomited it, so it's fine.
Yeah, and I'm like,
bee vomit.
And you
I know that gets me wet.
I mean, that's one of the things you brought out in that piece, was that sugar is sugar. It doesn't matter where the fuck it comes from.
Yeah, and it's like, here's the thing. There are different chemical compositions of, like, I don't remember if this got cut out of the piece or not, because there were things that got cut for length. But like, you know, there are different compositions of different types of sugar, obviously. Like lactose is a sugar, and that's, you know, not okay for people with lactose intolerance or other dairy allergies. Not that an intolerance is an allergy. Moving on. You know, some people legitimately do have a sucrose intolerance or allergy. I don't think allergy is the right word. I think they don't have enough of the enzyme that busts apart sucrose. So like some people legit have to avoid the fruits that have a high sucrose content, which is, you know, that's fascinating to me, that just a simple switch in, you know, in the structure of the sugar, and you can't have it. But yeah, like there are subtle differences, but in turn, the biggest takeaway from that is the number of calories. And if you're someone who your doctor has said you have to avoid carbs for X medical reason, the number of carbs, no matter what the source of the sugar, that's what counts.
Right.
So,
and it's simple things. It's simple things like that people don't seem to understand, that for, you know, in my case being diabetic, that I have to be careful the type of sugar that I eat. I mean, it's like you said, I implore you to ask a diabetic. Fruit sugars do indeed raise blood sugar. I don't eat fruit. Well, I don't eat fruit anyways, but I'm more of a veggie person. If I have a recipe where I, you know, little brown sugar and some butter, and I roast peaches. And I pay very dearly for that, because I can tell when it raises my blood sugar to a level that's higher than it should be. And it'll take a day or two for it to stabilize again. Like anytime I go on a steroid, and, you know, because of my back, because of the herniations, I have been on steroids. I've also had injections in my foot. And every time it's like, well, there goes my blood sugar, because it takes anywhere from 3 to 7 days for it to work out of my system and stabilize. And it's like, but it's simple thing is, it's just like, you know, no matter what I tell my boss, no, you know, even though it's might be chemically different, you know, as far as the structure goes, it breaks down into the simple sugars, and he either doesn't understand it or doesn't want to understand it.
If he's a beekeeper, then, you know, he has a vested interest. And I mean, I've had this discussion with other friends who are in beekeeping, and they'll talk about how, you know, honey it's slightly more than just sugar. Obviously, it has another flavor to it. And it's because there are other compounds in it. But at the same time, like, it's fucking sugar. It's sugar. Like, same thing with that sap we keep sucking out of it. I want to know who was the first one who just decided, I'm going to lick a tree, and then I'm gonna boil that shit, and I'm gonna bottle it. It's just someone did that.
Because my dad used to do maple syrup, and I've tasted raw maple syrup. Okay, and it tastes nothing. It tastes nothing.
So someone not only licked the tree, they were like, we should boil it.
They had to boil it for a while because it takes a long time to boil.
I feel the conversation went like this: the tree is crying, we shall boil the tree tears. Like that had to somehow that had to, like, you know, maybe it's just me. I probably need therapy, but I want that to have happened.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I can think of no other way how that would happen. Like, unless you were high and you were like, let's boil the tree tears, man.
It's, you know, I could see myself saying that if I'm high. Like, why not? Let's boil some tree tears. That could, like, eye of newt, tears of tree. Sure. That could be a thing. Totally be a thing.
Yeah, it's crazy, especially with the science in food.
But there are so many foods that I wonder who was the first one that was like, I'm gonna eat an egg. A chicken sat and this appeared, and I'm gonna fry this up with some fucking butter. Cheese. Who thought to put some enzymes in stuff they sucked out of a cow? Like, I think I applaud that person, but I want to know who, like, there's so many things I want to know. Who was the first one that was like, I'm going to take these little grains in this grass and I'm going to grind it up and I'm going to turn it into bread, which is magic. Like,
well, I think with the cheese thing, if I remember correctly, was that it was actually an accident.
That doesn't surprise me. Like,
they put milk into a, you know, their little, well, at the time they were made out of cow or goat stomachs. They were little pouches, and the Jocelyn shook it up and they had curd. And that's how, allegedly, according, and this was
Reddit and all that.
But I don't know if there's any truth to that, but it, you know, like, cheese was kind of, but yeah, the whole thing was, who was the first one to try to eat a potato or a tomato or yeah.
And once upon a time, they were sure tomatoes were killing them because it was, you know, the acidity was leaching lead out of plates. So eventually somebody had to be like, well, this was killing us, but now I'm going to fucking chance it.
Yeah, it's just, and I think that's where a lot of our myths about food, you know, especially the bullshit myths, come about. I mean,
do you know where the myth about wheatgrass comes from?
No, I haven't heard that one.
I love this story. So there was, I forget her name. There was a woman, I want to say it was in the 1930s. Like, I wrote, I think it was a blog entry called In the Tall Grass that I'd written a while ago. Back before I knew how to, you know, title a fucking blog entry so that people knew what the fuck I was talking about. But there was this woman in the 30s who thought that in order to achieve health, we had to eat like cows, and they eat grass. And I think she also thought we were supposed to regurgitate it too. I could be wrong on that, but instead of regurgitating, she just thought we should, you know, juice it because that would get the same kind of medicinal value out of it. But either way, she decided because she just wanted us to have the wheatgrass because cows did, and then all the other bullshit that came out of wheatgrass came from this one bugging chick who was like, let's eat like cows. I feel like that's the drunk history version of wheatgrass.
Well, Turpin Fullman, when we were talking about maple syrup, puts, well, they used pine sap to seal boats, and maybe they thought maple sap worked down. Would seal the same till they smelled it.
I'm still going with my version of events.
It predates wooden boats. It's ancient Aboriginal, way before shipbuilding.
Yeah, it just, and he also puts too, by watching other animals what they ate. That would make sense too. It just, it's crazy. But we are coming up on the end. So, Yvette, would you like to tell people where on the internet they can't find
you? I was going to say, well, it's where they can't find me. Oh boy. Well, most porn sites don't have me yet.
I forgot all about. I was going to bring up here.
Oh, don't worry. I'll plug my stupid fucking podcast. So I review porn. That's the thing I do. I am my podcast partner Alice and I are the Statler and Waldorf of porn over at Two Girls One Mic, where we discuss the holes and plot holes in your favorite parody porn and other pornographies with the plot, because I I'm a pervert. I also discuss bad science over at the SciBabe on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm at facebook.com/SciBabe, and this will probably not surprise you at all, SciBabe.com for my articles, and I write for the Outline, and itself. So go find me there.
Yep, and I will put everything in the show notes. I just ran out of time this week before they also changed YouTube, and I was like, what? I had to try to figure that crap out.
Giant platforms changed on us. We should lodge a complaint that they will surely listen to.
Well,
very responsive.
I think it's in beta right now, and for some reason, because we didn't have a show last week because I was sick, and so between the last show 2 weeks ago and when I set up this one, it was totally different. But then I found a little clicky thing that I could go back to the old format, so I had to delete the first one, do it all over again. So it was like, oh shit, I didn't get a description. But I got that in, but I didn't have any links in there yet. So I'll throw your links in there after the show. And Miss Sammy, where can we find you?
Well, again, I'm in the process of moving right now, so still nothing yet. But again, I'm hoping to get creative when I get in the new place. I'll actually be in Deb's old pad for a little bit, so get to work in that creative space. Mr. Vlad will help me, I'm sure, and we'll create something. But for now, I'm just on Facebook. Just Samantha Mondegreen. It's easy to find me.
And Miss Morgan.
All right. You can find me on Twitter at Mostring. That's Mostring. You can also find me on Facebook, Morgan L. Stringer, and you can find me on Instagram at Mostring, Mostring as well.
Excellent. And our special guest co-host who has just as much of a fangirl crush, Miss Bridget, where can we find you? And plug crap.
You can find me on Facebook under Bridget Fitch. And I'm also on Holy Crap the Vlogcast, which is on Saturday nights live from midnight to 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can also find me on my blog at bridgetfitch2112.wordpress.com.
Excellent. And the easiest way to find me is on Twitter, Dune998. That connects to my blog, which is Havoc and Chaos, where I primarily write about the abuses within the church and not just diddling priests, but there's been a lot of thefts and extortions and murders of late, which is kind of bizarre. But, you know, they have the more high ground, so, you know, they're doing the right thing. And then you can find me on Facebook under Beth A. Hambridge, as well as on YouTube. And I haven't put anything new out, as I was sick last week, so I didn't get much done. So, and I'm also on a new platform called MeWe, but I have been informed that it's going to kind of be a cesspool of woo and bullshit and free speech for anti-vaxxers. So I have one friend on there so far. So
Could that be your anti-vaxxer voice when you talk about anti-vaxxers, Beth? Because that was
Hello,
fucking hilarious right there.
I want to talk to you now about anti-vaxxing.
Well, the piece I'm working on now is an anti-vax piece, and he gets into some of these so-called. He hits the polling. SciBabe would be more familiar with the Hannah Polling case, where she wanted the vaccine court, and basically she had mitochondrial disease, and it really had nothing to do with vaccines. And then all these debunked, like the Thompson debacle at the CDC, stuff that if you read the actual court cases, which Morgan will appreciate this, I do. It's like nothing like what they present. Like, and Cheryl Atkinson, of course, is part of this whole debacle, so I'm going through some of her stuff to debunk what another. It's like basically this woman took a Cheryl Atkins piece and put it out as truth, and then the guy I was debating was like, "See, your own people say." It's like, no, our own people didn't say that. That was Cheryl saying that he said that, and if you read the actual court transcript and the court ruling and the decision, that wasn't actually said, and he didn't testify. Well, he didn't testify because they wouldn't let him because he changed his mind. No, he was specifically talking about mitochondrial disease, not that MMR causes autism. And it's like, yeah, this one's taking a while. Too many court cases.
I've given up on fighting anti-vaxxers in the like on my on SciBabe. I just ban them automatically. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, here's the thing. Like, I see anti-vaxxers and like, look, and I'm sure there aren't any anti-vaxxers listening right now, but if you're out there, I see you as a virus, and I will not let you spread your shit on my page.
Well, it's funny for as much as I write. Well, I did a long expose on Jim Humble and Carrie Rivera with her MMS bullshit. And regretfully, we didn't get her shut down fast enough because now there's other people doing the same bullshit, although the GoFundMe and Facebook and YouTube and them are, hopefully, they'll stick to it, are cracking down on anti-vax misinformation being cast around. But it's like, I have never, I mean, I think I've gotten one comment where, wow, I was accused of being a shill, which I find it absolutely fucking hysterical.
There are whole websites devoted to calling me one. So what?
Don't
worry. Work on it, and one day you will get whole websites of hate devoted to you.
Well,
you will get an entire inbox of it. It will be.
I find that so fascinating, just for the simple reason, it's like, how much cognitive dissonance do these people that are wearing glasses and admit going to the doctor for stitches, etc., or are full of tattoos, but yet they're anti-vax?
It's just like the tattoos are natural. We've been doing them for thousands of years. We just can't be sure.
I feel like I've made all these arguments so many times that I'm exhausted by them, and I hate feeling like I'm preaching to the converted. I think that like this cloud of nihilism has just like settled over my head, and I don't. Like, it's not that I think that we aren't making any progress, but like not this year, last year, there were reports that like that people, like, again and again and again, last year especially, people getting their flu shot was down in the US. And I'm like, no wonder 80,000 people died. Like, and I mean, I don't know if we're fighting a losing battle. I don't know if we're preaching to the choir too much. I don't know what we're supposed to do next, but we do need to do something to communicate better. And I mean, that includes me. And that's part of the reason why I'm like, I want to hop to YouTube. I've been following these younger creators who are doing things differently than me, because I want to know, what can I do to do this better? Like,
right.
Instead of being threatened, I'm trying to learn.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole thing for me. Like, I mean, as I said, a lot of this started when I had my strokes and I was trying to figure things out, exactly what's going on inside my screwed up brain. And as I said, I got that thing about, meditation will quote cure you. And I'm like, no, that didn't really help any. But it's like, I actually went into debunking the anti-vax bullshit more so because I wanted to take a break from the debunking creationist bullshit and all this, political and anti-religion and all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, and I thought this was going to be a break.
No. Like,
I was so wrong.
I think at some point you realize I just like arguing on the internet. Like,
and there's just so much stupidity everywhere. It's everywhere.
And you know what here's when there's a moment when you sit there and realize this might all be for nothing. It's when you realize everyone that you're arguing with sees you the exact same way that you see them. They are the hero in their own story. They are doing what they think is right to protect their kids, even though they are absolutely 100% wrong, and don't ever forget it. Mm-hmm. And it is hard to fight with someone when they look at you and think you are trying to poison my children. And I've been trying to wrestle with how to more effectively I get through to someone who is sure that I am paid off by a giant evil corporation to tell them to inject chemicals that will harm the mental health of their child. Like it's like, and I mean, I've tried to figure out what, like, I mean, think about it that way. If you were convinced of that, if you were convinced that was who I was, you'd be terrified. You'd be like, oh my God, everything coming out of your mouth is a fucking lie. You're paid off. Like, and that's what we're fighting against.
Yeah.
And it's shitty.
Yeah. I think for myself, like basically for me, I mean, I've always done my blog for myself, and it's never really, I mean, I just let everybody read it. I mean, this is just shit that goes through my head that, I've come across conversations or debates that I've been in online debates. I couldn't debate myself out of a paper sack if I tried, but it's just information I've come across that I find helpful, and hopefully somebody else does. And that's how I try to look at it, is that I'm just passing on information. If people want to use it, so be it. If they don't, so be it. Hopefully, somewhere along the line, I might make a difference in one person.
One person's enough if they were going to be the one that got the flu that killed them.
Yeah.
So every time I see, like each year I do the We're Doing Shots campaign, and I do a cute video of me being like, please get your flu shot and take a picture of your Band-Aid and put it on social media with the hashtag We're Doing Shots. Anyways, each year I get more people saying I got my flu shot for the first time because, partially because you nagged so much. I'm like, I'm an effective nag. And I think it's partially they see all the pictures of other people. Like, and this is why I say it's a group effort. It's not just me. It's as many voices out there as possible. Like, if you see a lot of people completely healthy, completely fine, not coming down with the flu after their flu shot, you get it through your head. Oh, this is okay. This is probably something that's helping. At worst, my arm's gonna hurt. At best, I don't get the flu because of this. And people have kind of come around to that. But I think that's one of the things I can do to kind of not get in people's faces about it. Maybe get people that are already on board with vaccination to be better vaccinators. Because one of the contributors to the non-vaccinated population are adults that are behind on their boosters. So,
well, that's one of the first things I did after I had my stroke. I finally qualified for Medicaid. And Pennsylvania had just literally expanded like 6 months before that. And I do work, but I made like $50 too much to qualify for regular Medicaid. Yeah, I was one of those. And the day after my stroke, I qualified because I couldn't work for like 3.5 months. And then I only went back part-time, and I'm still not quite up to full-time. I'm almost there. But it's like, the first thing I did when I got my Medicaid is had all my fucking boosters. I mean, I had like 5 shots that day. It's like my poor arm.
I got I had my Tdap and MMR boosters like around the time that I started SciBabe, because people were like, how do I know what shots to get? And I looked around and I'm like, oh, there's a quiz from the CDC that will tell you what to get at what age and what you might be missing. And I'd moved enough that I'm like, I don't know when I missed what. Like, and mainly, like, I got all of my childhood vaccinations, and I don't know what the fuck happened after I was 13, and I don't know what I needed. So I put it in as an adult, and they're like, oh, you need a Tdap and MMR. I'm like, I thought I was done on MMRs, but I'm like, you know what? Can never hurt. Another vaccine will not fucking kill you. So I went and got them, and 2 months later, I lived in Anaheim at the time, and I had an annual Disney pass. I was at Disney on the actual day of the outbreak, and I had just gotten my MMR. Here's my cloak of all this earned immunity from a needle that I did not need to get the fucking measles. Yeah, suck it, person who gave everyone else the measles. I'm fine. Like, just get yourself a fucking MMR.
Yeah.
People are stupid and not getting it anymore and giving people the measles. Don't get yourself the measles.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been up to date on my tetanus because of being in food service. I have a tendency to, slice fingers, drop knives on foot, not good things. So I've always kept that up to date, but my other ones were so out of date. I mean, we're going back to when I was going into college. That was in 82. But I'm all up to date now.
Nice.
Now I qualify for the pneumonia one and shingles.
Yep. The next one to get shingles. I think that's the last one on my list. And then I'm like, I'm sure that one day they'll come up with an Ebola one. But other than that, like, what else is there?
I got my pneumavax.
Yeah.
And I got all kinds of weird ones when I was in the military.
You were in military. You got crazy ass ones, but
you were immune to stuff that I haven't heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have a tendency. Well, Yvette, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. This
was like a fucking ball.
This was fun.
Thanks for I had a great. It was people who go on as many tangents as me. This is fantastic. Yeah, it's
all related.
It was kind of a one of those free association tangenty things. Anyways, I promised my people over on SciBabe that I was going to hop on for a quick AMA so that they can delve into my brain a little bit and see my messy office, which I already showed you. So that's. Anyways, I will chat with you guys later. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, and thank you.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
And as I said, we have no outro, so we will bid you adieu for the evening. Next week, I think, is Michael Weissman. I have to double check my calendar. And then the week after is Everyone's Agnostic. And I have no clue yet what we're talking about because I got to recontact our guest and find out exactly what direction we're going. Because it's going to delve into some topics that I don't think we're all real knowledgeable about. So that should be fun. We'll all learn together. So y'all have a good night. We will see you next week. Same time, same bat channel.
Thank you for having me.
And Bridget, thank you for dropping by and sharing our fangirl crush.
Yeah. Anytime.
Morgan, you have a good night. And Sammy, you too as well.
Have a good night.
Good night, y'all. Hit the right button this time.